and welcome to At the Power Table podcast, where we are breaking barriers and building the future together. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous sunny day outside in London, albeit a bit hot in the heat wave. But that said, I am just so excited that there's sun and heat and we're not wearing jacket upon jacket. So we are releasing 2 episodes at once. And so today we have Corner Inez, who is just everything. I mean, there's a whole list of things that Corner is. He is the co-chairperson of the Young Energy Professionals Forum. He is a 90% full-time, is that a great way of describing it, consultant at BFY. He is part of a startup fund, a energy startup company. He also does some freelancing and is just overall just a treat of a human being. And we have a really fun conversation about freelancing, about skills in the energy industry, apprenticeships, and the intersection of regulation. I quite like that word, the intersection of. Kana and I met at an Energized Black event, and I was just so fascinated with the whole freelancing bit in energy, so I asked him to come onto the podcast. I hope you enjoy. Tell me where it is again.
I work there 9 out of every 10 days, and I've ended up running a startup that trains people in high hazard industries like electricity, gas, rail, to basically use AI properly, because most people really suck at using AI.
Okay.
They use it largely as like a fancy search engine, or like, help me write this email. You're like, you'd hope you can write an email without needing AI.
I mean, it's kind of like the calculator. You can do 2 + 2, but like, why would you do it if the calculator can do it for you?
True.
You're gonna judge me so hard.
Yeah. There's like cognitive offloading where if you use it habitually, and you're always using it to do things that you could think about and do, you get really lazy, and it's like your brain is a muscle in many ways. You'll get worse at doing that thing.
So what's your tips for people who want to use AI? How to use it better, smarter?
Use it intentionally.
Okay, what does that mean? Because I'm intentionally being like, can you write this email because I can't be asked?
Yeah, that's fair. If you're going to use it, you need an idea of what you want it to do in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it described wonderfully by the co-founder that it's treat it like a really enthusiastic intern.
Okay.
It's going to do exactly what you've asked it to do, but it's going to do exactly what you've asked. Like, unless you're really specific in what you've set out, it's going to go off on a bit of what will seem like a tangent to you and seem like really obvious to it. So yeah, if you're going to use it, think about what you're going to ask it to do, like frame what's the output supposed to look like, what's the tone supposed to be, how are you going to use it. And it's part of being intentional. You have to think about what you're trying to get out of this. Absolutely, use it to make your life easier. No, I can understand the backlash against AI. And you're like, it'll take our jobs. It might take some people's jobs. Absolutely.
Big claim.
But more likely, it's going to be people that are quite good at using AI that will take your jobs.
Okay.
Okay,
don't
lose your cognitive ability by offloading everything to it. Use it to take away the busy work, the shallow work, the stuff that you don't really need to think about anyway, and use it to free up time for deep work, the things that matter to you, the things that are interesting and system-wide, because it sucks at bringing loads of things together. It would just be like this, and this. And you're like, well, there's no like reinforcing system loops between these. So,
and this is a startup you have started?
It's probably a startup I joined in with would be a better description.
Okay.
Says a guy called Richard Wayne, who I used to work with at the Energy Systems Catapult, who launched this. And he's an absolute whiz when it comes to AI. And I've got involved with the freelance work I was doing. And I helped develop like the training course and test it with people and helped bring it to a commercialized, you can now buy this. Yeah. You can train your people.
Very cool.
Sign up now. And we've all...
Sorry.
All right, it's called Emmeline Square, which isn't the catchiest name, but it's... Oh, and he's going to kick me for not remembering the story properly. Emmeline Square is it's a geographical location where it was like the first repository for all of like engineering standards data for something within energy in the country. And so it was named after that, because it's kind of, you have access to all this information. How are you going to use it properly?
So beautiful. I love how, I love the intricacies of how people's minds work. I have a friend who's also just started his own consultancy, nothing to do with energy. Nice. It's finance systems. And he's named his company 44 Hertz. which is just a frequency, but it's so cool. Like, why did you pick that? Like,
I feel like they've got to come up with a good story to go behind it.
Well, to be fair, he's built his entire brand consulting around, we find your frequency. Every business has a frequency. We find the right notes, kind of musically inclined. He likes music and lots of his hobbies are around music, so it makes sense. But it is really cool. Like even this, like his energy, it's a space where energy was deposited. What did you say?
It's like the standards, like the written forms of like how, what should this piece of metal's tolerances be in many different aspects.
That is so sexy.
You're in the right industry that you're like, engineering standards, so sexy.
Yeah, wow. Sign me up. So that's what you do you said 9 out of 10 days you're doing a full-time job, and then this is a sideline?
Yes.
Okay.
This is, in addition.
Okay. Tell us about your 9 out of every, I don't know.
It's kind of like mean? I get a day off every 2 weeks.
Hard you like.
Muffin! So hard being you. Yeah, it's a lot to fit in. I make absolutely no claims to say I'm good at fitting it in, and it has cut into other areas of social, and I have skirted gone into burnout and then gone back out of it, and it's difficult to do, but it's fun and it's interesting, and I like doing it for now. I might change my mind in a year, but we'll see.
As you should have the right to do as you want to. So tell us about your every 9 to 10 day job.
I'm sure.
To 10-day job. That's how we describe it now.
90% job. I keep shifting my day off at the moment to help with deliverables, so I've not actually had it for a while. So I work for BFY, which is a small boutique energy consultancy. Like they just do energy, really. They've worked with something nuts, like 95% of energy retailers. And I've come in to help build up their energy networks team, because I used to work at the Energy Networks Association. I did like innovation projects on this area when I was at the Catapult. And my area has been innovation, which is super cool, because it's this lovely halfway house between academia and industry, which was kind of the Catapult in many ways. And it was a great place to work, but I quite like that consultancy is much more. Saying financially focused makes it seem, cold-blooded, capitalist and terrible. But if something isn't financially sustainable, then it doesn't matter how sustainable it is in other ways, it's not going to stick around. So you have to be financially sustainable to be anything sustainable.
Completely agree. Talk to us about what is innovation in energy?
And then, if you want to get to net zero, and I might be pillarized for this, it's not that hard.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But it's going to be so expensive that almost no one can afford to have energy.
Right.
You could reinforce all the electricity networks and just put tons and tons of metal in the ground, but it's going to be outrageously expensive. It's going to be really hard to get that much metal in the first place, like even just kind of the raw materials, but then you have to look at all the supply chains of what it's got to go through to get here. And then you come into like, how secure are we as a nation if we're importing a lot of these things? So you could do it. At its core, the energy transition is a building project, which is why the skills gap that we talk so much about through the Ep forum is such an issue for it. I forgot where I was going.
It's a very deep grave you've dug yourself here.
Yeah.
You started off with.
Yes, thank you. That's a rider.
Not that hard.
It's not that hard physically. You could deliver it. Like you could just conceptually, it's not that hard. You're we just need to build a lot of stuff.
Yes.
But if you want to do it in a cheaper, faster, more secure, more equitable way, like the green transition is such an opportunity. You're like, we are overhauling, it's not just the energy system, but the entire economy. And the economy is clearly unbalanced at the moment. Like, if people are having to choose between heating and eating I think we may have slipped a little bit since Brexit, the 6th richest country in the world.
Yeah.
I would love to say it's unfathomable, but unfortunately it is, and it shouldn't be. So if we just build out, we're making things worse for these people. We're missing this huge opportunity to make life better for millions. So innovation comes in at that aspect. How do we use the current system better? How do we avoid all of these materials mostly and change, if we're changing the system from centralized to dispersed to really decentralized to still decentralized, and it flows both ways, how can you set this up in a way that you're not going to have companies, businesses gaming the system, but you're also not going to have people falling through the cracks?
I love that. We've talked about innovation on the podcast before with Sagar Depala.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's episode 8. No testing my knowledge of how well do I know my podcast episodes, but we've talked about that. And I think innovation was previously a consulting buzzword. And every time you said innovation, you were like, oh my God, smartest person in the room. And now it's become AI, right? AI, you're like, oh yes, AI is the answer to everything. But I think somewhere in that, and what I'm picking up from what you're saying, is there's something around how do we look at the processes we currently have and how do we redesign that so that it fixes the problems rather than perpetuate the current problems we have, which I love. And then again, there's something very important that you said earlier, is systems thinking. So it's that holistic design of infrastructure, economy, energy, people's livelihoods, all of it together, which AI can't do. Such a
No.
beautifully wrapped conversation. I love it.
You should be good at this.
That's really cool. You have recently started at BFY, right?
Yeah, it's 2.5 months ago or so.
Okay. And prior to that, you were freelancing.
Yes, I still also do some freelance stuff.
Okay. Yes.
Largely things like you'll start to notice a theme. I wasn't sure if that was a very, very well disguised personal attack. You're like innovation, AI, they're all the buzzwords. Covering them both, but for like the innovation allowances, grant funding for UKRI, like Strategic Innovation Fund, SIF, for the energy networks, or Energy Catalyst, which is like energy innovation projects overseas. Yeah. As part of the freelance work, I'll kind of assess those applications. And it's super cool because you're reading about these projects that are designed for completely different settings. But if you can do it in developing countries, you can apply the same ideas here. In the same way that a lot of things like urban design or products that have been designed for people with disabilities, a classic one being like that dip in the curve of the pavement for those with mobility issues, everyone that doesn't have these disabilities, they benefit from it as well. Yeah. The overseas projects, innovation projects talked about, how do we deal with a lack of just literacy? You're like, well, yeah, the UK's got amazingly high literacy, which is wonderful, but we also have localized pockets where people don't speak English particularly well. Yeah. You're like, well, if you want to bring these people along on the journey, it's a very similar approach you have to take with it. Yeah. And I think I've innovated my way to answering a completely different question to what you'd ask. Though.
Super interesting. Like, has there been any like standout stuff that you're like, oh my God, we could definitely take this. Why have we not thought about this?
Oh, so the funding decisions have not yet been made on that one because it closed like on Tuesday. So
it's just like super confident. You can't talk about it yet.
It's probably best not to. But
okay.
Yeah,
we can have you back on the podcast and then you can come tell us all about it. Sounds like a great idea.
I would love to recommend people that have done far better work than I have overseas. Like, there's something to be said for knowing what you know and knowing when you should cede the microphone quite literally to other people.
Fair enough. I look forward. Is the results going to be public?
Yes, they will be public well, the project should all start in August, so I'd hope everything will be made public by the end of next month.
Okay, very exciting. Fingers crossed. Do you have a favorite that you're rooting for? You don't have to tell us who. Yeah,
there was one. It's just incredibly well designed to have good co-development with like the local people in the area, and it had thought about particular things of relating to the local culture. Like, it wasn't just we'll have gender segregated workshops or we'll have joined ones, but like we'll have the options for both, and they'll be timed around like market days and other economic activities, and kind of if people often will go to a certain area in certain times of the week because of just the cultural norms, and they fitted it really nicely around that because a lot of international development programs, they'll do a thing and they'll leave and the thing will kind of leave with them or die with their exit. So this was fantastic because if you get local people involved, they feel a sense of ownership, and if they own it, they want to maintain it, and it could be great for them, but imposing something rarely works.
I love that. I love the simplicity of the detail, but like so detailed that it actually works, which is so like when you hear it, it's like, Yeah, of course, that kind of makes total sense. Why aren't we doing that in the first place? But that doesn't happen, right? So, like, if we take that to the energy industry, yeah, we obviously know we have a massive skills gap. And we have, if you've listened to Josh Robertson, he has a podcast called Engineer Career, and he was on the podcast too. He speaks about a systems gap. So he speaks about engineers who are graduating but don't have jobs. And then you look on the flip side, businesses who are like, oh my God, we desperately need engineers, but we can't find them. And somewhere in between, there's this gap, which we call the skills gap, the systems gap, something around communication. And I know you're very passionate about apprenticeships and how we bridge that in. So kind of looking at like, we have this issue, we have apprenticeships, we have all of these things. What are we missing? That super obvious something. What are we missing in your opinion?
Yeah, it seems insane. Like, we need 312,000 more people in energy by 2030. I think it's energy utility skills for that number, so I've got my reference. But we also have 1 million not in education, employment, or training people, like 16 to 24 years old. And you're like, how? Like, that's great. A third of those people, instant jobs, surely.
Yeah.
So you end up with this weird question of, as you said, why do they not have jobs? Why do we not have the opposite problem of not enough opportunities here? And I always really like place-based anything, really.
Yeah.
Place-based decarbonization is obviously like stuff I've done. Like, I delivered a local area energy plan before, and the specific area makes a big difference. But you have that for the jobs as well. Companies will recruit apprentices that have to live within this certain area, but like, they'll get a company car to drive out to substations. Take Energy Network's example. Why not just allow anybody to apply for the job, like a normal job where you'd assume they'd end up moving to there, or they have to live within a larger radius because they're already mobile for these sorts of aspects. People that live coastal, obviously particular regions up in Scotland, you're going to have the opportunities on your doorstep. You know, offshore wind farms are like a really big employer in your area, or you can physically see them. So loads of people will go for those. And I think wind farm or wind turbine technician is hugely oversubscribed for apprenticeships. And then you've got, so as well as there's a geographical dispersion of, it's a building project. You need to be in these areas to do it. There's an apprenticeship is not an apprenticeship. Wind turbine technicians, hugely oversubscribed. Overheads lines person, massively undersubscribed. Like, you've got to have a head for heights, but much bigger region that you could do it in. It's still geographically based, but it seems that people don't consider like these specific ones. I am going to be the millionth person to say that we're terrible at talking about how great energy is. Energy, like, you don't want to have to talk about it. You want to turn a light switch on, it works. And, you know, for people like us or listening to this, you might want to think, ooh, this photon of light was a puff of wind in the North Sea mere moments ago. And you're like, that's super cool. But if you're talking to, like, if you're trying to get 16-year-old girls that are just leaving school in the north of Yorkshire to think, I might work on overhead lines in Wales or something completely, like, I don't know if to call it out there, but I think a lot of people think of much more office-based roles before they think of the physical world, which is a shame.
Yeah.
We need people up the poles and down the holes if we're going to deliver it. And it's similar to selling, I think, the energy transition as a whole.
Yeah.
There's absolutely the green angle, and I love that. I'm super passionate about it. It's shaped pretty much all my choices over the last 16 years. But we can also say, you're going to make a lot of money doing this. You can go into these practical roles and you'll start higher than people that would have gone a university route and joined a graduate scheme, and you can progress much faster as well. So it's energy security and cost on the whole transition angle. And, you know, it's the green jobs, interesting, something that is much less likely to be threatened by AI, and you get paid well on the skills front.
I had an anecdote, I'm paraphrasing, from someone else who went to all energy that just took place. And they were saying that there was a technician at one energy firm who was earning 100K, and another energy firm came over and they were like, can you please come to us? Don't want to use the word poach because I know the word poached is not very friendly in the energy industry, but they offered them a better salary, 100K. That's how much they offered them to be like, would you like to come work with us instead? And I'm like, yeah. for extra
Yeah.
70K. Where do you want me? Which corner of the world? I will be there. And I agree. I just don't think people understand how lucrative energy jobs are because the demand is so high. Also, it's so, I want to say, the thing is that probably the messaging, and this coming from an Asian household / Indian household, you're taught engineer, accountant, doctor, like high-paying jobs, high professions. That's the only route. And I wonder if that's potentially the problem. What do you think?
Parental pressure pushing people to pursue.
Terrible parents. Kidding, my parents are great.
If you're watching this, she loves you
They
still.
are great.
Yeah, I'm sure that absolutely has a role to play in it. And what is it? You can't be what you can't see. And this applies for improving diversity, equity, and inclusion, and applies for, if you want to get more people doing these jobs, make them more visible. Like, I've gone into energy and I've done this for a while now, but I never previously thought about going and doing that hands-on side of it. Or even when I was making the choice, it was more like energy as a whole. Wasn't too fussed about which bit. Didn't really know that much about it. It was just kind of this looks sort of cool. I'll apply. So yeah, how do we get more people out there to go and speak to people at the points they're making these decisions?
Yeah.
If we have people going into schools to speak to children about like 15, 16, or when they're finishing college, 17, 18 now, can we get, people like, or people from energy networks, from energy retailers, startups, those that are doing the building, to go in and speak to these people? And I've been thinking about it on the way here, and this is somewhat thinking out loud, so I worry where this could go. We often talk a lot about, we want people from minority backgrounds to come in and speak about these things. And yeah, obviously. But we've also, I think, seen reflected in the local elections we've had recently, there's a lot of people that feel left behind. There's, if the stat has changed, I apologize, but a few years ago, the group least likely to go to university were going to be white working class boys.
Okay.
And you're like, are they overrepresented in this area? Yes, absolutely they are. But we also have a massive skills gap here.
Yeah.
Like, I think we shouldn't be afraid of still going and targeting these people that are, they are overrepresented in a sense, but they are still, I would say, underrepresented in society as a whole. Like, people feel so disillusioned with the current system of things that they're turning to groups like Reform, which you can understand, if this isn't working, I'll go for anything. But if you have the opportunity to improve these people's lives, to close a skills gap, to make the environment better, to make the country better, it's wins on every side. So, yeah.
What do you think we need to do to get that holistic perspective? Because there is merit in, there's a necessary thing to help previously marginalized groups, right? And to pull them through the system. But I see a point in terms of, you're saying that doing so and putting effort into that takes away from effort from someone else, or maybe the focus is just wrong. What do we need to change, in your opinion?
It's difficult. There are always limited resources. It's a lot of things are a zero-sum game, and you don't want to be like, this group is still marginalized within this area, and this group suffers in a different way, and then it becomes a difficult balance. There's a bit of a cop-out that you're like, well, from my perspective as an energy business, I need people to do this, and in these areas, and these are the kinds of people that already do this, so I'm going to target that because I know it, it's easy. And I think that idea of I know it is probably their biggest problem. Of, like you had said about your parents, the encouragement is, I know that these are high-flying professions that you should go into. And you're like, that was absolutely true, but it's probably not true now.
Yeah.
Those are absolutely still really impressive white-collar professions, but it's,
the scope more.
You can get a 70K pay rise by moving company as add vocational skills within energy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the outreach approaches have probably stayed a little bit stuck in the past. There are things, there are oldies and goldies. Let's have people go into school and speak to people. But given the number of hours that most people will spend on social media every day, and perhaps that's a bit of a buzzword when it comes to marketing, which is not really my area. How can we reach out to people better through these mediums? How do we have the same impact of, hi, I've come into your school. My name is Sarah. I work on overhead lines.
Yeah.
But pushing that through like a medium that people are going to be interested in or are already interacting with. It's like adverts on anything, particularly on social media. You don't want it to be imposed. It seems to apply to everything. If you impose it, it's not going to work.
Yes.
If it feels seamless and part of what you're already doing and consuming, it's received much better. No one likes being sold to. No one likes being lectured to.
I agree. And like picking up on one thing you said is the young people and the need for younger, more diverse voices, which is the perfect like cue in young energy professionals.
Yeah.
So you are currently chair of young energy professionals. We've had Human on the podcast before who was leaving, or she just had left being the chair of young energy professionals, and you've taken over. It's been a year.
Yeah, about a
Yeah.
year and 5 months now.
Yeah.
So yeah, Human was the chair before me with Sandy Kelly as the co-chair there. And yeah, it's been since the start of last year, and with my vice chair Isabella Oratore, who has such a beautiful name that you can't avoid saying it like that. I'm going to get so much flack when she hears me pronounce that. But yeah, it's been about a year and a half now, and it's been a ride, but in all the best ways.
What have you been doing at Young Energy Professionals? What has changed?
A lot, both internally and externally. We are still for people with less than or fewer than 10 years experience in the energy industry and are based in the UK.
Yeah.
And those are really our only two criteria. Like and are not massively enforced. There's always someone that comes to the event where you're like, you don't seem like you quite fit into this. By coincidence, most members end up being around about up between the ages of sort of 22 and 35. But we have people that come along that are 16 or that are 57.
Yeah.
So there is a broad range that comes, but our core is still the same. We still do free events like site visits, because everything we've been talking about has been wonderfully tangible. But when you work in an office or behind the desk, it can feel kind of ethereal. You're like, it's the energy system, but it's a spreadsheet to me, or it's a diagram.
Yeah.
So we want people to get as hands-on as you can get with, a gas turbine, a nuclear reactor, and go and see these things in practice and learn about it's a physical system. It's got to physically connect from one area to the other. It's not just how do we impose a fancy policy or financial way to do this? There are real physical constraints that you've got to consider. So we'll get people out. We'll do lots of site visits. We do networking events so people can meet each other. You're going to get to know the people in your company, but I am 8 years into the industry and it's died down now. Now it's every kind of 2 months I'll meet someone. I'm like, I didn't know you could do that.
Okay.
That's a cool job. So by helping people meet others, they'll understand what's out there, and they'll form those connections as people do move around the industry and move up through the industry. And we have a big thing on thought leadership as well. So our big focus over the last year and a half has been, how do we get more people in the industry through non-university routes? And apprenticeship seems like, the low-hanging fruit on this, the obvious one. It has been pleasingly and annoyingly not as low-hanging as one might have assumed. Okay. So you're still very much concentrating on that. But yeah, I think the major differences are we have doubled the membership over over like 365-day periods. I checked from March. Yeah, we've doubled the membership compared to the previous decade, which is
very
nuts.
Nice.
And like a big part of that is we really professionalized and formalized the internal structure of it, which, no one's ever, unlike what you said about the engineering standards, governance isn't sexy, but it is quite useful. Yeah. So split it up and we have like a stream that's concentrated just on running the events, a stream that's concentrated just on doing the thought leadership, the apprenticeships, and a stream that's concentrated just on doing like comms and communications, because we've already said like we suck at communicating, and we have some brilliant people that are brilliant at communicating in the industry, and we're lucky enough to have some of them within the Ep forum. So that's made a big difference. So it's been formalized, professionalized. I'm hoping it's still fun. And we've doubled the membership, so we do more events than ever. So
that's brilliant.
Big change.
Congratulations to you and the team. That sounds awesome. I can pick up on the 57-year-olds. That for me is a career switcher, and we are all about people switching careers into energy. Everyone needs to come over so we can fix the energy transition and make sure it's just and equitable for everyone. And in terms of that, like career switching, one of the avenues I would think would be attractive, just so that people start building their reputation, their knowledge, their expertise, is freelancing. So if someone was listening to this and was like, "Oh, maybe," what advice would you give them?
Look into my eyes. Don't do it.
We're taking that off.
The magic of editing. What advice to give people that are looking to go into freelancing? I think you do, jokes aside, you do have to be realistic about it. Like, it is highly competitive. One of the difficulties that I had was I was targeting energy networks, and they're huge organizations that tend to bring in people that either have really deep technical expertise. So if you have that in a really niche area, amazing. This could be a really great opportunity for you because it's niche. It's not always needed. Your contractor, freelancer setup. But they tend, when they wanted to bring in more like general things, they look for quite large teams. So it's know both what you're good at, but also what your target customers or organizations are wanting.
Yeah.
So a lot of good freelancers and even sort of up to medium-sized consultancies, like BFY does it a lot, that they will partner.
Yeah.
So I go to networking events. I've come to the Young Energy Professionals networking events.
Yeah.
I've met people through that when I was freelancing. It was like, you do a thing and I do a thing, and they complement each other really nicely.
Yeah.
So we'd partner up, and then when there's opportunities that come along, either of us find, and we're like, oh, that other person, organization will be a good fit for this. We apply as one unified front, and that makes it much easier. So do that. It's good to meet new people. Massively rely on those that you do know. If you're a career switcher, you'll have worked with thousands of people over the lifetime of work you've had so far. And those people would have probably splintered off into different industries. Go and speak to those that have gone into the industries that you are interested in. Like, you don't want to go to them and be like, hey, mate, I haven't seen you in 10 years. Will you buy from me?
Yeah.
You want to be like, hey, I haven't spoke to you in ages. I've started freelancing. I'd love to bend your ear for half an hour to understand more about your area. And it's understand them. And then if you think there's an opportunity, or you would like them to introduce you to another person, you have the turn, as the David Fields, a really good consultant and kind of advisor for how to approach these things, says. You have the turn where you go, this is really interesting. I'd like to talk to you about how I might help with this in next week or the week after, because you have your relationships. Look after them. They're tender. You don't want to try and sell to people. No one likes being sold to use that again.
Yeah. I love that. That's such cool advice. So be practical, be network savvy.
Yeah.
And be, what was the third one? Gosh, I forgot.
Yeah,
but it was a brilliant one. Yeah.
Understand what you're good at. Understand your niche. Understand what your target customers are looking for. Partner up.
Be collaborative. Yes, that was definitely
Use your networks, both the ones you already have, and look to expand new ones. If you want in energy, come to energy themed events.
Yeah.
If you want to meet people in energy, it seems like an obvious place to go.
I love that. One of my favorite questions to ask, and I'm very excited to hear your answer, so no pressure, is if you could change anything in the industry. So no policy restrictions, no money restrictions, no any restrictions. You just had free reign to do whatever you want, and boom, it would be done. What would you do?
Oh, so much. I would start from a blank slate when it comes to regulation.
Okay.
Because we have, and this massively applies to energy retail, where I think it's, I'm gonna mess this up. BFY did a report on this recently. Whilst energy retail is not my area, it was so good that I actually went and read it.
Okay, stunning.
I'm not being paid to say this, alas. But it's the regulation just for energy retailers. If you printed it on, I think it was A4 sized paper, and then you stacked it up, it would be 1 story high.
Wow.
How are you supposed to get through this and innovate? So I'm similar with energy networks. There's the grid codes of just the rules, how that works. And there's a discussion at the moment of, well, instead of the grid is built and you can kind of apply, and it's not that much if it's already built. But if you're the last person, if you tip over the threshold, you've got to pay a huge whack of how much it's going to cost to build the new stuff. And you're well, you could do this as you pay for the capacity that you're connecting to. And that's what the current discussion with this grid code reform is doing. And like, this will take years. You've seen some, like, for all of its faults, I think the Labour government has done a pretty impressive job when it comes to the energy industry. I'm a big Miller fan. Terrible. Plug-in solar. They were like, well, you know what we should do? We should allow plug-in solar. So we've allowed plug-in solar, like, pending, I'll admit it's not quite clicking, it's there, pending a few like changes for safety, but they have the ability that's proven to make these wholesale changes instead of trying to keep building and iterating on this system that was designed 100+ years ago. Let's just go, you know what? Things have changed dramatically. Let's have a complete redesign, and Ofgem's consulting on move to outcome-based regulation instead of input-based. I think that would be a huge difference. We've got probably the problem of too many cooks when it comes to this. So the UK, if you look at the UK, Germany, France, Japan, the US, like per capita, how many people do you think work in energy regulation in like France for like every million population you have there? What would you guess? I'll give you the rough thing. Like it's between 1 and 20.
Oh, my initial thing was 1,000.
You think 1,000 people in energy regulation per million population?
5.
5. Yeah, bang on actually. Yeah. It's basically between 5 and 6 for most of them.
Okay.
And the UK is 30. So we have 5 times the number of full-time equivalent people working in energy regulation as our peers across the world. And you're like, how do we regulate ourselves into such a conundrum?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's not a particular conundrum because we're doing it at like 5 times the number of people. I would be surprised if we managed to do it at 5 times the pace. So that's what I would do. I would have a blank slate and regulate for outcomes instead of inputs and free up these organizations to do the innovation. If you want to do heating as a service, currently energy regulation for retailers are like, no, it has to be like kilowatt hour based. Like, well, it's contrary to this entire thing.
Yeah, I love that. Very cool in terms of regulation. The good thing is that we already have consultation to go from input-based to output-based regulation. So the tide is turning, fingers crossed, 5 times faster than we expected to. Final question for me. I mean, we've had such a cool conversation, started from freelance, covering young energy professionals, the skills/system gaps, some communication stuff, and a whole lot of politics, which is really... If you were giving advice to a young owner at the beginning of his career, what would that advice be?
Aim higher. You can do more than you think you can. Like, I have met some incredible people, and they're incredible because they aim for it. Like, there's a, I guess, unofficial mentor I had before. He'd said, sweat the small stuff. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. If you take care of the small things, people will trust you to do the big things. So if they trust you to do big things, aim to do big things. Like I did. So I went back to uni to do a master's because I was like, energy is really cool. But like my undergrad was genetics, and like there's quite a lot of technical gaps that I'm missing here. And part of that, you know, we did a report as a little group project on Haiti, and we wrote to the Haitian Minister for Energy and like the big head of energy charity there, and we got them to write the foreword and to sign it and to review it. And you're like, it's a uni assignment. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But what's the best you could do? And then think, what would be outrageous? And then try and do the outrageous thing.
I love that. That is such cool advice. Yeah, it's brilliant. I was going to overshare because that's who I am as a person.
You have the mic.
But that's definitely on my vision board. Ask the universe for more. The universe is on a budget. I love that. This has been absolutely spectacular. Thank you so much for the conversation.
Thanks for having me. It's been I've really enjoyed listening to a lot of the past ones.
Yeah.
So
do you have favorites? Or is that too controversial?
I mean, I don't want to say that I really like Humans one because I feel like it's like, oh, you were the past chair, now I'm the chair, and it's like we're in cahoots. But I did genuinely really like it. I think I liked that it was really personal, and it was
really
like,
cool.
I got a better understanding of her as a person from this.
Yeah.
And yeah, in the end of the day, a lot of what we're doing here is for the personal.
Exactly.
We want to make individuals' lives better. We want to have better futures for ourselves, our loved ones, our families, children, if you have them. So yeah, I really like that one because it was personal. And to borrow a phrase from the past, the personal is political.
Yeah. I love that. That is so beautiful. And I agree. When I was interviewing her, I was like, oh my God, She's amazing. Like, to the point that I was like, I had to like reel myself in, but like I was like, okay, you're beginning to become super creepy. Can you just calm down?
BFFs.
I think I may have asked her if she wants to be my BFF.
How's it going, invite?
I know she hasn't. I think I was fairly, that's when I was like, okay, you've got to reel yourself in now. You're making her feel really awkward. But yeah, awesome. Well, thank you very much for the time. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Boom. As always, a treat of a conversation. Key takeaway for me probably is around the fact of networking and positioning yourself, trying to understand first what is the need and then spotting the opportunity from that perspective. I love that. Super practical advice. At the very first episode that we ever launched, we had a wish list of people we wanted on the podcast. And our next guest is Juliet Kilojoules. And it's a brilliant conversation. So make sure you like, subscribe, and do not miss the release of that episode. Bye.